So the purpose of the press conference here today is to make an official stand by the CGG, what we think of the law that was tabled, because we have a very big interest in this and a very big stake, because we actually submitted our draft to the Selangor State Government. So while we are very, very happy that this is a great achievement, we are, however, a little bit discouraged by what actually came out and was tabled in Selangor, in the State Assembly. We are, in terms of the basic principles of what a freedom of information law should have, you have a copy of the leaflet which actually contains the principles, but I'll just briefly mention them. A good freedom of information law should be based on the principle of maximum disclosure. It is the duty of the government, which is the servant of the public and holds information on behalf of the public, to disclose all information. So that is the principle in which we work. The second is that there must be routine publication of information. So it is also the obligation of the state to make information available in a routine manner. So not just when somebody files in or when they challenge you in court. It is actually their responsibility to make information available. There is a need for an independent administrative oversight body, basically like a commission, which we have proposed in the law, to ensure that the law is implemented accordingly in terms of setting what kinds of information should actually be out there, training of officers, and actually promoting the freedom of information law. The law is also there to promote open government, which basically means open meetings. So some of you may have experience with regards to local councils, where open meetings are actually held. This needs to be extended also to the state machinery. So a good information law actually legislates that as well. There are, of course, exceptions. We are not saying that it's a blanket call for all information to be made public. There will be exceptions. Examples of exceptions are private information. We know that good freedom of information law actually protects individual privacy, confidentiality, for example, health information, and legitimate concerns about security and public interest. I mean, there are information regarding health threats and things like that that can be exempted from the law. But again, it's not something that you say, okay, this is health, so we don't make it public. It has to be considered. It has to be put to test whether is it in public interest to let it out or not. So you have to actually, there must be very, very good justifications, and it must go through a rigorous system of finding out and deciding whether this can be exempted or not. The others are processes and costs. It cannot be expensive to get information. Some have experiences in getting environmental impact assessment reports that can cost up to about 1,000, 2,000 ringgit. That is a serious constraint to the public right to information. So, you know, there's information that's readily available and can be made available on websites. But if you have to make copies, the cost shouldn't be more than the cost of the copy. So you shouldn't have to pay like 100 ringgit to get information, what more 1,000 ringgit. So there is a need to ensure that the public is able to access this information in an affordable manner. And if you happen to be illiterate, which you shouldn't in this country, technically, but if you happen to be, then someone should assist you orally and to accept your request and actually communicate that information to you in a way that you can access it, so through visuals or through recordings or something like that. The other one is, again, open meetings. And then the other three aspects, of course, when we look at federal level, is that the laws must be continuously reviewed, and freedom of information should take precedence where there's a conflict with secrecy. And this is one point where the B and Aduns were really picking on during the debate, but I can go into that later if you have any questions. So these are basically the fundamental principles of a freedom of information law, which was contained in the draft that we submitted to them. And I can say that as far as the EXCO is concerned and her team, they were definitely very, very open. They were very, they accepted the draft, and they gave us assurances that those fundamental principles will be retained even though they had to do some tweaking in order to make it suitable for the state. Unfortunately, on the day the law was tabled, the enactment was tabled, we find that it has been watered down seriously. To begin with, they took out, and they I put in because we are not really clear as to who they are, but we do have our suspicions of how the process works. It has been significantly watered down to take away what is actually the right of the individual. So instead of it being a right to access information, it is now an opportunity. So one of the first issues that we have with the law is that there is no guarantee of right to information. It has been defined as an opportunity. And in further clauses or sections in the law, for example, under Section 5, and you have a copy of it, it says that any person may be given access. Now, this is very, very, very different from what we have proposed and what we think is what is needed, really, for the public, in the sense that, again, the government holds the information on the public's behalf. So it is actually the right of the individual to access that information. So that's one of the first weaknesses that we have seen, and the language also tends to sort of move away from the rights framework that we have proposed. So the enactment is very much premised on the basis that the government owns the information, and they may give as and when they think it's okay for them. The second thing is that the exemptions are rather wide because of the way information and documents is defined. So basically, by mentioning limitations in reference to the Official Secrets Act, that itself sort of excludes quite a lot of information. And it only refers to state agencies or departments, and does not specify any body, company, or private enterprises that may be conducting functions in public interest. So, for example, the state does not collect your rubbish per se. Local councils don't collect your rubbish per se. It's actually all contracted out. But it is all in public interest as well. So how does the law affect them? At the moment, it's very ambiguous. It's not clearly defined. Again, it may or it may not. So that's very bad because a lot of the functions are carried out by private enterprises, corporations, even state corporations are also not clearly spelled out here. Though the EXCO did mention that they will begin with GLCs that the state has a majority share to amend their, as I understand, articles of constitution to compel them to actually give information. So it's a very